Hello, beautiful souls. It's such a pleasure to have you here with me today. As I sit down to record this podcast, I was wondering what my conversation with you was going to be today. And, this month of August, one of the things that has been guided and has come through with the energy forecasts and things I've heard other people talk about is this playfulness and being in this playfulness. And I have taken the last week, I had a friend in town. I didn't spend a lot of time with my spiritual practice, didn't spend a lot of time meditating. It's sometimes a little challenging when you have somebody stay with you and you have a one-bedroom condo, but I did get some things done, but I didn't meditate as much or connect as much as I have in the past. So as I sit down to record this podcast, part of me was like, man, I feel disconnected. And I know I've been taking time and playing and having fun, and that's all part of life, and that's all experiences that you have to experience. And I had a beautiful healing today, and it was really amazing. Sometimes even like doing that, because it's been a few days since I've actually held space to help somebody heal, it was almost like, am I going to remember what I'm doing? It's just those fleeting parts, and that's part of your ego coming in. But when I sat down and I was like, man, I feel disconnected. And then I'm like, really not disconnected. Like, I hear what's going on around me. I hear all these different frequencies. I'm receiving the energy and the guidance and the messages. I'm being present in the moment and enjoying life and taking it all in. Sometimes being a little reflective of the past, especially when your friend visiting is one that you've been friends with for 20 years, and sometimes you go down memory and you reflect on different things. Like, he said to me, we were walking out of the water, and he said to me, I'm so grateful that my dad didn't let me buy my grandma's house, because my life would have looked totally different. And I said, wow, that's really powerful, because I know at that time it was not easy for you, and you were actually very angry with him and very mad at him. But to be able to be in this moment and reflect back on the past and look back and realize that that was a pivotal moment. That was a fork in a road. And at the time you thought you wanted this house, you were so attached to this house, you were so attached to your grandmother, and you wanted to hold on to a piece of her, and he talked you out of it, and you were angry and mad, and you're like, oh, look what I could have had. And now fast forward 20 years later, 25 years later, whatever it is, and you look back at the moment and you're like, I am so grateful, because if I didn't, I would have been stuck in that space. I never would have traveled as much as I was. I would have never moved to New York and had this life in New York and created so many friendships. And as much as I love my nieces and nephews and being around them, if I had that house, they probably would have all been living with me, and I would have taken on a lot more responsibility with them, almost as if they were my children. My life would have looked different. I would have been okay either way, but I really enjoy my life the way it is now, and how much I love my life now, and how I'm still an integral part of their life, and I still connect with them, and I still give them advice, but I can explore and have my own life. And they really did turn out to be amazing young men and women who are still evolving and growing. It is in those moments where you have those aha moments and you are like, wow, this is where I have evolved and have changed, where I'm not holding on to something so tight that I'm letting it control my life. I'm being fluid and releasing attachments so that I can grow and create a life that I want and I desire, and have it to be ever changing. And look back on these moments and be like, whoa, these were amazing moments. And I am so grateful for these moments. And maybe at the time you weren't so grateful, but now you can be grateful for those moments. So even though I wasn't necessarily meditating and connecting in a way that I was maybe the week before, I still have been. And I'm still seeing these amazing signs and these amazing synchronicities, and opening my heart and exploring things. And that's all part of your spiritual practice, because your spiritual practice is your everyday living. Your spiritual practice is gratitude, which I have been doing every day because I've been doing it in my challenge, and it's been holding me accountable to at least post 3 gratitudes a day. And I love that because it helps keep me on track with those, even though by doing that I feel so much more gratitude, and I can feel the gratitude and appreciation and more and more things just by stating what I'm grateful for every day. It allows you to be in that state. But your spiritual practice is what you eat, what you consume and put in your body, the way you speak to yourself, the way you speak to others, the mindfulness, the being present. It is the meditation. It is the affirmations. It is the prayers, and it is the intentions. And when you have that practice that you do it every day, when you're not in your environment where you have that time and space to do it at a certain time or a certain way, you still do it. I was saying my prayers and intentions when I was driving him back to New York yesterday, and I didn't even realize I was doing it. I was being grateful for my day on my drive home and being grateful when I got here. I was taking time to listen to songs and receiving messages through songs. So I guess my point is, when I sat here and thought I was disconnected, I really realized how connected I was and how tapped in I still have been, even if my daily practice changed and it wasn't exactly what it had always been. And I did let go and not jumped on my Facebook group and do do my guidance every day, because I wanted to be present with him. I hadn't seen him since December, so it's been quite a long time. We usually see each other every couple months, so it had been so long with all that was going over, and I really wanted to be present in all the moments I had with his family and him and my family, and with this beautiful woman that's in my life now, and reconnecting with our friends. That ability to be present in that moment is my spiritual practice. And feeling the love and being in the heart center is more important than anything, because feeling that divine love coming through and being true to myself, being in my truth. We were out to dinner with a friend of ours that I've known for maybe 17 years. I met through him, and I was wearing my mask, and he was like, well, what do you think, we're sick? And it wasn't about that. And I didn't give in to his pressure or how he felt. I just stayed true to me and what I felt was right. I followed my gut, and that's important. Whether you choose to wear a mask or not, it's the most important thing is being in your truth and what feels right to you. And then accepting everybody for whatever their truth is and letting them be wherever they are at. You don't have to agree, but just accepting them and being truthful for where they're at. So a lot has happened in this week in so many ways, and reflecting on your week and things that you've gone through is really important. I said maybe not it is important, but it's just really fun to do. It really is fun to do, to look back on things that you did and, reflect on just a week. Just think about it. You reflect on a week and you've accomplished so much. Reflect on a month and see what you've done. Reflect on 3 months, and 6 months, 9 months, a year, and just keep going back. And you'll be so surprised of how much you've accomplished, how different you may perceive things now than you did then. Or like I did, where I sat down and felt that I was disconnected and realized that I have been tapped in and so connected this whole week. I had a beautiful chat about synchronicities, and there was a lot of beautiful synchronicities that has happened this week. Synchronicities are ways of the universe and your higher self letting you know you're on the right path. Whether you get those synchronicities in that moment, or you look back and you realize how many synchronicities you had leading up to this moment. Each one of those are important. Each one of those are guiding you along the steps to where you need to go. And it's a reminder that you're on the right path. And if you want to learn more about that, and you should listen to the chat I had with my friend on my other podcast that I have with my co-host Cindy Hernandez, called Magical Tea Talks 2 ... it's a Magical Tea Talks ... Coffee 2. Jen was my guest co-host on the last podcast, and we were talking about synchronicities, because there were so many synchronicities showing up for her. And it's called Magical Synchronicities because all of it led around this word magic for her, and her being a co-writer in a book called She is Magical. And now She is Magical 2 is coming out. So if you want to learn more about synchronicities, I say jump on over there and listen to that. And then I had a magical talk with Cindy on Facebook, which will be the next podcast that is launching. And it's about releasing and letting go. And there's some really deep conversations that were had, not only on these Facebook Lives, but with friends and family in my practice, in going to the rehab and the group healings that I do. I had some really amazing deep conversations and deep reflections, and so many things were lined up and linked together. But I want to take this moment and remind everybody that being mindful, being aware, being in your energy, taking action might take you out of your daily practices that you do. And that's okay, because you're still going to work through these daily practices. It just may look different. I always tell my clients and friends and people in my community on Facebook that there's really no wrong or right way. And the way that you are right now may look different down the road. It's like when somebody asked me if I did crystal grids, if I followed crystal grids, and I said yes and no. I do crystal grids, but I do crystal grids in the way that I feel called. I listen to the crystals, and I listen to where they want to be placed. And that is how I place my grid, because I feel that everything is energetically shifting, including myself, and therefore a set crystal grid may not be the energy at that moment that I need, and may not be the crystals that I need at that moment. And so being fluid is very important, because we are ever changing and ever evolving. So yes, there is beauty in the ritual, certain practices and certain ways that you do them, but there is a beauty in the fluidity of the situation, and being tapped into yourself and listen to the guidance from your higher self. You're going to be guided on what is the best for you. So by being fluid, you also begin to release the need to be the best for somebody else and be the best for you, or to do it like this person. I got off of a reading. Somebody had gave me a task to do. And I said, oh man, I should have recorded it because I didn't remember everything that was said. And I paused in that moment and I reflected on it. And I said, the process is important. So the process of taking one thing and putting it into another and changing the quantum reality is what's important. What is said in the moment can just flow from you. It doesn't have to be verbatim what that person said to me, because that was the reality yesterday. Today's reality is something different. And when you realize that the reality shifts all the time, that it can be shifting from now to now. There's a new reality right this moment. So to be able to be fluid, like the water, like the air, then you can be perfect in who you are at that moment and allow whatever practice you want be the practice that you are doing at that moment. There is something to be said about having a natural rhythm and routine, and sometimes it's very important and we really need that, especially if we're trying to shift out of different energy. Like maybe you're anxious or depressed or you're going through a loss or something, and that routine and that rhythm can be very important for you to help get you through that and then shift you out of it. But once you're out of it, you're in this expansive moment. It is to your best benefit to be fluid and allow yourself to go and do and be whatever you want to be. 5 minutes is all it takes sometimes. It doesn't always take that hour or 2 hours. And it also depends on what you're working. So be fluid. Be the change that you want to be, create, and do things that you want to do without judgment of how others perceive them to be or how you perceive others perceive them to be for you. Because, that happens too. So what's the moral of today's podcast? The moral of today's podcast is to realize that sometimes when you feel disconnected is when you are actually the most connected. And maybe that could be true the other way around, right? When you feel the most connected, that may be you also being disconnected. And what just came to me now is that disconnection sometimes when you're so connected could be disconnected, is the disconnection to your human form at this moment. So remember, we are both divine and both human. So there is this counterbalance, this in between, trying to find the balance, not having it swing so far one way or another, to be connected and disconnected at the same time, to be human and to be spiritual. And then maybe you don't want to be human and you just want to be fully spiritual, or maybe you want to be human and not fully spiritual, but actually you are never one more than the other, because we are all both, and it all comes through. I guess that's some things for you to reflect on. It reminds me of the conversation I was having today with Cindy. She brought up something, and I said it reminded me of when I was in church, and I would go to church. I was raised Catholic, and I remember sitting, I see it, what I'm wearing in the pew, the priest up there, this one moment when I'm sitting there and I'm going, he's talking about something in the gospel out of this book that was written by a man about another man that came from God. And I'm like doing this whole like trace back in my head, and I'm like, but where is God and who is God? And then I'm like, what's the universe? It's kind of like how was the planet made? And you just go back, and in my young mind, I went back to this like nothingness, complete black or blank. But at the time, just reflecting on that, the time it was black, and now it's blank, and it's realized you are your creator. You are creating your own life. And so you are giving this blank piece of paper, this blank slate, to go out, and everything you do is creating your life and creating the people in your life and the people all around you. So you create that relationship you have with your friend, with your mother, with your father, with your brother, your sister. You create how it is. And if you don't want it that way, then you can create the change that you want it to be, because we are all the creators. That's not where I was going when I started to his conversation about being in the pew. But it is very, when she was talking about what she was talking, I went back to this kid, and I always questioned and I always wondered, where did it all start and how did it look? And every time I did that, as a kid, continue to grow up, I always went back to this blank state. And now I got the reason why. Because that is our start. Our start is a blank canvas. And when I started to paint again for the very first time after many, many years, I remember staring at this white canvas and I'm going, oh my goodness. It was so scary. So scary at that moment. I have this big white canvas with nothing on it. And I am going to create something, a painting. And I was so scared. I was so scared because I didn't know what I wanted to create at that time. And that's an analogy to life, right? When we are given that blank slate, which we're given all the time, but when we really actually take that moment and we're like, here's my canvas, this blank slate, and I can create whatever I want. What am I going to create? It's so scary, but it's really not. It's fun, because once I picked up the paint and I started going, I was having so much fun, and that's life. It is fun. It can be so much fun. We just have to allow it to be and get over that fear, to pick up that paint and put it on the canvas to create what we want. So today's podcast was kind of a conversation about many different things. Maybe to get you to reflect on some things in your life, to realize how connected you are when you even feel disconnected, to realize that you are the creator of your own canvas. You are given this blank slate in life to go out, and to remind you that we are all divine and all spiritual. We are all spiritual and divine, and we are to integrate that throughout everything that we do in our entire life. And we can integrate that however we want. And we always bring in aspects of each part of that. To what degree is totally up to us. So, go out and spread some love in this world. I am sending you all my love and gratitude. If you would love to work with me, you can go to my website, intuitivehearthealer.com. If you'd like to join my Facebook group, it's Intuitive Heart Healer. And I'm on Instagram at Intuitive Heart Healer. Until next time, go out and create your own reality. Create your own magic. I will see you real soon. Bye-bye for now.